Just look at this clip of the United States, how sad this is. People just, laying there. It's a dump. This is sad to see. This is heartbreaking. You go to Los Angeles, you go to California, they have how many homeless in California? What is it, 500,000? The tent cities, right? The homeless cities. How on earth is this the richest country on earth? And then you have this. No one deserves to live like this. I'm sorry. This is unbecoming of the richest country on earth. This is ridiculous. This should not even happen. And yeah, don't get me wrong. You have countries that have poor people and homeless people. Sure, but this is out of control. How come they have all this money to give Ukraine to just kill Russians? And yeah, I know they like to package it differently and say, oh, well, this is for democratic European values, whatever the hell that means. And then at the same time, these politicians, they let their own people live like this. What is that? This is disgusting. This is an abomination. This is an abomination. I'm sorry. It's not okay. Like I said, I know you have homeless people in many countries. This is out of control. This is inexcusable. Even in a poorer country, shall we say, it would be inexcusable. But especially when the United States is so generous, right, in its military aid to Israel, almost 4 billion, 3.8 billion a year, and then giving Ukraine tens of billions of dollars. Let me be clear, when they give Ukraine this money, they don't give it to Ukraine. It goes from Washington and Wall Street to the military industrial complex. So the General Dynamics with their artillery shell plant in Scranton, Pennsylvania, or it goes to Lockheed Martin, Northrop, Raytheon. That's where it goes. So it stays inside the United States. It just goes from, tax dollars to private sector. That's what's happening. You understand? So why do they have so much money for wars, but they don't have any money? They got nothing to feed the poor. I think this is really despicable. And the problem is that it doesn't matter if you have a Democrat or you have a Republican in charge, because these people are largely, they literally come from the same schools, right? And again, there's nothing wrong with having a good education. It's just that I'm talking about they go straight from there into working in politics and they behave like scum. If you turn your country into this, you're scum. Not the people here, not the people in the video. The politicians that create this are scum, because there's no excuse. There's a difference between, let's say for 1 second that there were no people in this on the street, right? Let's say there were no homeless people, hypothetically. It's a dump. Why does no one clean it up? This is again another problem where you have a shortage of funds to deal with public infrastructure, right? There's not a shortage of funds. They're just going somewhere else, right? They're going somewhere else. So it's not just the streets not being cleaned. It's also the bridges, the telephone lines. In the United States, this is funny. If you go to Eastern European countries that used to be Soviet satellite states, their internet is better than in the United States. You know why? Because the United States was one of the first countries to lay internet infrastructure, and it's never upgraded it since. The telephone lines are decades old, So that's not upgraded. It's not, nothing being done there. It's a scandal. This is really a scandal. I can show you a million videos like this from not just Los Angeles, but Pennsylvania, New York, all over the country. There are people like this that are struggling, I don't think this is oh my God, they made poor life choices. Poor life choices. what they didn't clean up the street. It's not their job to clean up the street. Why? This is not normal. You know, one person with quote unquote poor life decisions, whatever the hell that means, like you should just go suffer and be homeless for the rest of your life because you made poor life decisions. These are, we're talking hundreds of thousands of homeless people, right? If you take the whole country into account, this is, you know, it's a systemic problem. You know, there's something very, very wrong here. And a funny thing is, if you go and look in the UK, you have a similar problem with homeless people. And in both countries, you will find a lot of the homeless are actually people who used to be in the military, right? So who are veterans. And, you know, there's a culture in the United States of you know, revering veterans. And I mean, I don't know for what. You know, yes, to a certain extent, I get it. But you know, Iraq and Afghanistan, not exactly things to be proud of. And in the UK, it's sort of the same. You know, this is considered, quote unquote, serving your country. Well, then did these people make poor life decisions? I thought if they serve their country, then they are supposed to be revered and celebrated and taken care of. And instead, they treat them like shit. You know, they also have problems with VA, Veterans Affairs. You know, people can't get doctors. They can't. They get bounced between psychologists and psychiatrists, or they can't get medication. It's a disaster, you know. It's so notorious for being disorganized, and it's not just disorganized. It's just it doesn't fulfill its purpose. It does not take care of veterans. That you know, it's notorious for being terrible. And you'll find the same kind of system in the UK, albeit to a lesser extent, right? What's problematic here is the principle, you know, that this has become, you know, like an epidemic. It's like an epidemic. But again, I think the better term and phrase to use here is systemic, because it's something that is rooted in the way things are done. And you know, there's only so many videos you have to watch before you get the bigger picture, right? I think one is largely sufficient. Very sad. Very sad.